Sapphire, Tom, Milo, the Emeralds, the Clevengers. I'm Bob Duane, but especially from Chambersville? Chambersville, Pennsylvania. The moderator, and thanks to Andrea and Caleb and Charles, they got the technology worked out that our moderator is Lowell Martin. And so, Lowell, can you hear us okay?
I can, and it's exciting to be able to join you with technology.
We're super excited to have you, and we'll let you take it over.
All right. Well, listen, the group of people that I'm working with, I can't say enough with. And we were putting together the planning for this. I was like, you know what? How does it get any better than working with this team? So I'm excited to kind of help everyone move through this qualification process. And our goal as we talked through this was to help people get unstuck and to be able to have somebody who's moved part of the way through this process or hasn't gotten started or able to move people through this qualification process to know how to actually say, all right, how do I take it to the next level? How do I get myself in a position where I can move this process forward and start new business partners? So I think probably the main thing with this is that getting consistent with that 30-day core run, the habits, it's where it all starts. That reading, listening to your audio each day, or as Dimitri pointed out, your podcasts, having that constant communication with your mentor, and getting your conversations in daily. And I know some people are probably in a position where they're just struggling with that. So, guys, what advice would you give to people if they're in a position where they've not been able to get consistent with those daily habits? Tom, I know you had something you weigh in on this.
Yes, thanks, Lowell. One of the things that was really helpful is the book BK 1590, Atomic Habits. It's probably been one of the best books in the system for creating habits, and that's what we're trying to do. And a couple things about it's unique, and there's so many things have been talked about habits, but it comes from a different perspective on with a whole bunch of different nuggets about how to set up a habit, how to set the environment up properly, tying what you want to do to something you're already doing, a whole variety of things like that, and also becoming doing your habits from inside out. I want to be someone that's attracting people. That's the person I am. So I will have conversations rather than I'll have conversations. So eventually people will be attracted. I mean, it's a mindset. And it's been a very good book to help break the cycle and get some good habits going.
Excellent. And I think knowing the purpose of a habit and why these things are important is a big deal. So does somebody want to share why these habits are the building block or why this is important?
Well, I think, Lowell, that our mentor used to always tell me, Royal, I'll answer this question for you, but here's where you can find that information. And in our TL14, and TL is training literature. Actually, it's training, it's actually backwards. Learning so you can train. Okay? And on page 47 in your TL14 talks about these conversations and why we need to have them and how we need to have them. The whole book TL14 from page 1 to page 83 has a load of information.
Yeah, it's kind of the Cliff Notes for our business, isn't it?
Yes. And one thing, Lowell, for me is I was very, very shy when I started. I wouldn't have led you in a silent prayer. I would certainly not be up here. And not even in a one-on-one conversation. But staying in touch with your dream, which is the why you started this journey to begin with. And sometimes even as we get into the journey, we forget and we don't spend as much time as we should. We hear audios where people would have a list of great diamonds in the business would have a list of questions for Dexter, and he'd take them dream building, and he wouldn't answer any of his questions. And they'd say, well, you didn't answer my questions. He said, well, you didn't ask the right questions. The dream building was the most important part. So staying in touch with that.
Lowell, I think the as you talked about integrity, if you have a mentor that you've committed to, I'm going to do these certain things, and you can't at midnight say, I'm backing away from it, I'll do it tomorrow, or you'll never do it. And if you're committed and you have people that you're leading and or you're reporting to your mentor, you've got to do that no matter what time it is. And, there's been times that I've had to stand up to finish my reading, because I knew if I laid down, I'd fall asleep. And I've had to do that. And if you want the habits, they start with the small stuff. Everybody wants to go diamond, but you got to start with being able to read every day, listen every day, do all the things on the core run tracking sheet that are easy to do, but they're also easy to miss.
Yeah, I know there's been many nights that if I wouldn't be committed to making that accountability message to my mentor, Steve Yeager, I probably wouldn't do all of the steps, right? There's been times that, like you, I get to be late at night. It's like, oh, I haven't done this or I haven't done that. But knowing that I'm going to send that accountability message really keeps that discipline in place. So being accountable was a big thing. But, I think the value of these habits is personal growth. And recognizing that to lead a big team of people, there has to be personal growth inside of you. And so knowing the importance of this and the value and why becomes the motivation to be able to do this. And then Tom, you had something else you wanted to add here about the number of conversations and what you found created different results.
Yeah, in my case, I was after, on the sheet it says 5 conversations a day. We've been Dexter's talked about doing 5. There was an old audio where Ron Hale said, put 5 beans in your pocket and move one over when you talk to somebody, and do that every day. And that's just a little thing to keep him remembering. And when I was doing that, I was committed to doing 5, but I wasn't getting the amount of MTAs in, and therefore not enough meetings. So we just had to get serious about upping the number of reps, and we've had some diamonds come in that would be just like Dan Ryan talked about that. Just you got to get enough reps in, and his son, Zach Ryan. When you get enough reps in, and so we were challenged by Dan Ryan, where he said his upline told him to go out and make 100, say hi to 100 people in one day, and we just got challenged, and we went out and decided we're going to see how many conversations can we actually have in one day, and because again, I needed to up it, and we found out we were able to do 50 conversations one day, which by the end of that day we were wiped out. And I called Doyle and said, hey, we did it, but I spent $3,000 on food but put about 2,000 miles on my car, but then we realized, hey, so I can really up my conversation. We just doubled the conversations, and I found out if I did 200 a month, I'm getting the results I want, and so, if 5 isn't getting, you'd go to the end in mind, say, hey, I want to have an I want to have a MG1. How many conversations do I have to have? Everybody's got your own number, right? You'll come up with your own number. Once you know that, then just go out and do the work. So, up your conversation, get the reps, and then you'll get more confident as you do it.
I think there was a book in the system, Questions Are the Answers, by Alan Peace, and he talks about the primary motivating factor, but he also talks about what Tom was talking about. You get your averages, what you have to do to get the end results. I think that's what you have to find, your sweet spot, so to speak.
Hey, Lowell, we were privileged to be on the same working sessions before this panel. I loved your definition of conversations, how you define a conversation. Would you share that with everyone, please?
Yeah, I think probably for everyone it's different. And, my team, I tell if for you, not having any conversations in a day with anybody, not saying hi, then saying hi is a conversation. But if you're naturally a friendly person and you can say hi to people consistently, then maybe getting that conversation a little bit deeper would be what you would have as a conversation. So I think each one of us needed to find that based on where we're at and look at the progress and get more and more advanced in those conversations as time goes on. Excellent. So we're going to have a lot of terms here we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about MTAs, DTMs, and all these things. So we want to make sure that everyone at least understands that. Royal's already mentioned that you can find all this information in the TL14. It's kind of the cliff notes for our business. Dimitri talked about it earlier. But in making MTA is a making them aware. So an MTA would be to tell somebody what you do for a job, who you met, what about their lifestyle impressed you, how you pursued that relationship, and why that relationship has been valuable to you. And it's important that you be authentic and you get assistance on helping you write this so that it comes across in a way that makes people ask more questions. And then, of course, dropping the message or door to mentorship is a DTM. And this would be when it makes sense if the person inquires more, wants to know more information, that they would be offered a chance to meet some of the people, or that you would offer to have the opportunity to introduce them to your mentors. Then we have meet and greets. We have a meet and greet 1 and a meet and greet 2. And this is just basically a series of meetings that you're sitting down with somebody and doing. And then we've added another one, which is kind of a meet and greet 0 or a meet and greet 0.5. And so we want to kind of define what each one of these are and talk through them as we go through this information today. But one of the things that we see is that a lot of people are consistent in their habits. They've got conversations, but they just don't get to very many MTAs. So what would be some remedies that you guys could give some advice to people to overcome this pattern?
I think one of the things that has helped me, Lowell, is to practice. You know, we think about your favorite sports team out there, whether it's football or hockey or soccer or basketball or baseball, whatever it is. What do they do for 6 months before they ever play their first game? Every day they practice, and they practice and they practice and they practice, and then the week of the game, what do? They up their practice. So, you know, practice and getting comfortable with our information we're going to give people. That makes a huge difference in what I've been able to do, because then I don't have to think about what I'm trying to say. I can truly listen to somebody and feel the need. I can hear the need and then be able to fill it, and that makes me more effective in what I'm doing, and it helps me with make a difference. And the difference I want to make is I want to help people have a better quality of life financially. And in helping people do that helps my business grow.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think to be able to practice, somebody actually has to have written out their MTA. Yes. You know, we work with new people to help them do that, but I have existing IBOs that have never come and sit down and said, hey, can you help me write my MTA? Can you help me get this down? And so having that written out so that you know what you're going to say and it's designed in a way that's effective is a big thing to be able to practice. Yeah. Any other suggestions you guys might have?
Be yourself. Relax. One of the greatest things that I'll give credit, and I think Lowell said it, but an MTA is not an approach. Most people get confused. They get out there and they're having a conversation, and I think, Royal, you said that they're thinking so much of what do I have to say that they aren't listening. Right. So if you listen to people, they'll tell you everything. And you want to remember, find a connection. If you're talking to somebody and before you make them aware or drop, that's weird if you don't have a connection with them. You don't want to be weird. Everybody knows the rule, don't be weird. Well, become a friend. And remember that an MTA is not an approach. You know, think of it this way. It's great news. You know, I remember, when I'll use this example, when you have when we had kids, I wanted to tell everybody. I didn't know who they were. My wife just had a baby, and I was all excited about it. And I'm sure you tell perfect strangers great news. we're moving to the area, or we just got a new house, or you tell all that to people that you meet at the store because you're just happy about it. That's natural. That's what an MTA should be if you find a connection and build some sort of relationship, even though it's instantaneous. And I'll add one other thing. On our group, I've trained a lot of people that if it's going good, you've got to relax, and if you can get the number, you can follow up with that person and build on that relationship and set up a meet and greet 0.5 or 0 and see where that goes.
Yeah, it's just like having other life event. You know, you wouldn't be shy about telling others about the fact that you got engaged, you got a new job, promotion, you got accepted into a college, and especially with your A and B list, this should be a natural thing. And Royal, you had a point from Dan Raines that you mentioned that your team was using when they were working with their A and B list. He came in and spoke, and it's also on the audio.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was Dan Ryan, and it was CD 1402, and he talks about that list and how you can get that. And and when he first said that, we're thinking, okay, this guy's crazy. Y'all don't ever think that about any of the other audios, right? Someone's saying this, they're going, they're nuts. But then when we try it, it's like, oh, but it's like you think about, I've written everybody down I know. Well, really? Well, who'd you go to school with? Well, that was 20 years ago. Are they still alive? I mean, so, and what is it? They said if you know them and they know you, write their name down. It doesn't mean that it's going to go anywhere, but it's practice so that you can, when you find that right person, that you have that.
And he mentioned something else. He mentioned how you throw out a statement very early on in a conversation. Do you want to bring that up? Do you remember how he worded that?
Whenever, and this requires posture. And if you don't have it, then you need to get with the person that you're working with, and to where you can learn to have this. And the posture that I have when I start talking to people, and I was taught to learn how to lead the conversation to where it goes the way I want to go. It's not that I'm not listening to them, but I'm listening and I'm hearing what they're saying, and then I'm guiding them into the conversation that I want to have with them. That I have something of value that I want to share with them, and so I'm guiding that conversation to where I can lead them to make them aware, and I just blurb it out there, and it's not the first time I do it, because sometimes I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Jerry Meadows said, "Be weird." You just said, "Don't be weird," and he said, "Be weird and do something." A lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't want to be weird," because are you going to see him again? I mean, so a lot of times people I contact for the first time, I'm not going to see them again. They don't qualify themselves for this process.
We can get too locked up with this whole being weird or not being weird if we do nothing. And just learning to make this a natural progression of the conversation is key. We can go, okay, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to be weird. But also the fact that you can learn to make it natural. Yep. So, Tom, something you found that helped you get to more MTAs was something we talked about. It was about making the conversations more directly related to this.
Well, I think this is going to answer your question. What Bob was saying, when we first heard of this new way to talk to people, and not talking about the what we do, but talking about who we're with, and doing it this way, and even hearing discussions like this, I always thought that, man, there's no way I could do that when I meet somebody, and I found out that. Most of the time, at least in our case, and some of the people in the group, we're not going through all this the very first time we meet them. Right. It might be 2 or 3 times that we're meeting with them. Let's say you meet somebody at I'll give you an example, somebody we're going to MTA pretty soon at a, what's it called when they sell vegetables? Farmers market. Thank you.
Yeah.
Farmers market. You know, we've met this woman several times. We've gotten to know her more and more. She recognizes us now when we come. We've gone there like 3 times. We found out that she really doesn't like what she's doing and all the downside of selling what she does. And we'll MTA her next time. But it's been a month or more before we met her the first time and started talking. But we're developing it over time. And so don't feel like you have to get all this done and get in and know their life story the first time, because you're probably not gonna. Okay, but if you can, in a case where you can get their number, and then set up another meeting where you just seeing if there's a connection. And I guess we're going to talk about MG0 here pretty soon, or MG.5, where you're just talking, and then that's an opportunity where you can make them aware. So you don't have to do it all at once, and don't be afraid of it, and don't feel like you have to go force it. I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yep. The other thing I was talking about was during our planning, you had mentioned that you had to get more intentional conversations. So you went from saying, well, talking to somebody is a conversation, to advancing your version of what a conversation, or how you defined a conversation, as having a more intentional conversation that was directed deeper with more in-depth questions. Yeah. So there's some difference between what an A-list, B-list, C-list conversation would be, how you advance these. Can you share maybe just a little tips of what the differences would be in how you maybe would approach an A or B list or a C list?
One of the things that I got off Dan's training and his audios is that we get in and we teach people, we give them the 30-day core run, and when you're meeting people and having conversations that you don't know, that's a C-list person. And we were missing the A-list and B-list. We were training people to do the toughest job, and that was to talk to somebody they don't know. So an A-list and a B-list are so important, and we don't want to lose that. And back to what, Jerry Meadows said, be weird, and I said, don't be weird. I've told people on our team, if it sounds weird, say that. This is going to sound weird, because then it's not weird.
Yes.
Right.
I mean,
Yes,
if
yes.
I know that sounds crazy. It sounds weird. Thank you, Tom. But, if you're nervous about it and you say that, that just brings the wall down. But on your A and B list, one thing that's important, this is being weird on your B list. If you know somebody, you haven't talked to them in 5 years, and you call them up, and all of a sudden you start texting them or having a conversation with them, and you immediately say, hey, how are you doing? I hadn't been talking for a while. And they go, great, how are you doing? And you blow, you go right into your MTA. That is weird. That comes across, what is this person looking for? And if you can learn that what's important is 80% of the content and 20% is the context. And you've got to rebuild that relationship on your B list. So let me talk about A list first and then B list real quick. A list are your family and friends. We've got a new couple that's here in this audience. It's a brother of Chris and Nancy Wood's brother and sister-in-law. And he talked to him about mentorship. Well, it's his brother. And I said, does he know it's Amway? He said, well, he's buying products from me, but he couldn't connect the mentorship. He just thought the mentorship was great. And he didn't jump down his throat. He's a customer of his before he talked about mentorship. And he went through meet and greet 1 and meet and greet 2 because he wasn't jumping down their throat, and he had posture as he talked to them. So when you're talking to your family, they already know you. Remember, the purpose of a meet and greet 1 is to build relationship. Well, hopefully you have a relationship with your family, and you don't have to go through that. And so you already have that, so you can not speed through the process, because you want, the mistake I've made is on family that we've launched that we hadn't taken through the process. That's what they're going to turn around and screw up. So you got to make sure you say to them, look, I want to take you through this to see if you qualify, but if you do, I want to make sure I do it right so you'll know how to do it. And just be relaxed and be able to do that. Quickly on the B list, those people that you haven't talked to, you got to build a relationship. You got to say, hey, we used to do something together, or I was driving by your town and I thought of you, haven't talked to you for a long time. How are you doing? Build a little relationship. Go on Facebook and see where they've been. If people post on Facebook, hey, we're in Baltimore, at a conference. Some of y'all have already posted. How many people in here have posted something on Facebook about being in Baltimore this weekend? So your friends are seeing that. So if you were looking at somebody like that, you could say, Baltimore, man, I love that town. And you could just create a conversation to rebuild that relationship before you go further. And I could talk a long time about that, but I'll hush.
Yeah, one of the audios that's really great on teaching that for people to get more depth information is CD 1399,
Yes.
Building Your Asset by Johan and Julia Nielsen. It's excellent. It goes through exactly what you're talking about. Yep. Tom, you grabbed the mic. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay.
I did.
All right, so,
I didn't know you.
yeah, go ahead, Royal.
When you said the A list and B list, and then the C list is somebody you haven't met. On the way over here, we got off the plane. We got on a tram or bus. I don't know. It was a bus to me. Okay. And anyhow, but there was a gentleman on there, and we just started a conversation. We were with a couple other people, and they started a conversation, and we just chimed in, was back and forth, and we got ready to leave. And he goes, well, why are y'all up here? And I goes, well, we're up here for a mentorship, a group of people. And he goes, man, that's cool. I go, it's entrepreneurship. He goes, man, I really like entrepreneurship. And I said, well, can I get your information? And we just maybe connect with each other later. And so I got his information, his phone number. And after we got to where we were at, where I could send a text, I sent him a text. Man, I really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to getting back with you. Maybe we can connect together next week. And he texts back, that would be really cool.
Yep, excellent.
And he got his number by saying, what's your number? And he put his number in his phone and called him and then texted him back. So that's an easy way to get a number.
And it also makes it so that when you call them or text them, your number's already in their phone and they don't see it as spam. So great suggestion that way.
And it's communication, and that's one of the biggest things that people are. We got in this business, and I don't communicate with anybody. Well, what'd you do before this business? You communicated, and it's the same thing in this business, except now it's weird because now we have a business.
Yep.
So.
Oh, I think if you say to somebody, hey, do you have a business card?
Yes.
Now that's like, do you have an 8-track tape?
Yep.
You're so, everybody communicates via their cell phone. I'm sorry, they didn't know Tom said they didn't know what an 8-track tape. If you ask somebody if you have a business card, that's like you have a CD or a cassette player. Just like Dimitri said, they're not audios, they're podcasts. And you got to have the right words when you're talking to people. And so I do the same thing Royal did. I have never had anyone that I start a relationship with and said, hey, I'm going to text you my contact info. What's your phone number? And I call them, hang up, then text them my contact. So it's in the phone. And I tell them, I want you to save that contact. So when I call you, you'll answer instead of thinking it's somebody you don't know.
So typically after an MTA that you give with a candidate, either an A, B, or C list, do you usually find people saying, hey, that sounds really great. Would you connect me to your mentors? And if you don't have the person saying that, does that mean they're not looking?
I'll answer that, Lowell, because we talked about this. It means, I don't know about you guys, but most of the time when you first do the MTA, they don't come back immediately. So that doesn't mean at all that they're not interested or not a good candidate. It just means they either didn't hear it or they're not the kind of person that would jump all over that. Maybe they're not forward kind of people. But just because they haven't immediately responded, don't just throw them in the not interested, file. Put them down on a list that hey, now it's already out in the open. You've already MTA'd them. When you call, if you can call them back, you can say, hey, remember when I mentioned that I was working with a mentorship team, or I'm being coached to develop an asset. It's already out there. You can always say, I mentioned this, and maybe they did or didn't remember, but now it's just an in where you can bring it up.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, like Tom was saying.
Sometimes, go ahead.
I said, like Tom was saying, maybe right now it's not the right time. We don't know what's going on in their life. This COVID thing is affected a lot of people a lot of different ways, and it may not be the right time. And we contact them, and then later on we see them and we contact them again and again and again and again, until we say, okay, either they're somebody we want to further the conversation with, or it's not going to go anywhere. But then again, we still keep that conversation because who knows, 6 months, a year down the road. We've had somebody that has come back a year later and said, we were talking.
Yep, and they're referring back to your MTA. Yep. Sometimes people think there's something magical about the word mentor. And I'll have people say to me, well, I mentioned the word mentor to so-and-so, and they didn't really respond to that. And they really kind of think there's something magical about asset or mentor. But really, your story must convey to somebody how getting to the people that you're working with has opened the door for you to accomplish more in life. And it's kind of like one of those things where when you get something new, you tell people about it. You're not telling them for the purpose of them getting one, but there's kind of that little bit of competitiveness where they want one too because they see yours, they see you enjoying it. And it's kind of that same kind of thing that starts to happen in that conversation. But truly, in order for them to connect the dots and to think of this as something that they can engage in, there has to be some questions, follow-up questions. And the TL14 has a great list of them in there. But I feel like those follow-up questions should be initiated based on what prompted you to initiate the conversation. So if you're talking to them about having a mentor and that causes you to roll into your MTA, then a follow-up question is, have you ever had a mentor? If you're talking to them about them not liking their job and you talk to them about your MTA, then maybe the follow-up question to that is, well, do you plan on staying there permanently, or do you have an exit strategy? So it kind of needs to fit with what prompted you in the beginning to give your MTA. But it's that deeper question that's going to start to lead you to a DTM. So, Royal and Barb, I know you talked about some of the other things that a new person can do to maybe learn this.
Did you say Royal?
Yeah, Royal and Barb
Yes.
had talked about the importance of talking to their mentor.
Well, it's huddle, play, huddle. A lot of people go play, huddle, play, but again, you go back to all the sports. Did they play before they huddled? No. In fact, they huddled a whole lot more than they played, and that's a big thing in it is huddle, play, huddle, and get with your mentor, your coach, your person you're working with, and they can help you do this because each person is different. We're all different people. God gave us all different gifts and different things, and some of us are better at some things than others. But that doesn't mean you can't get better at something. When you huddle with your mentor, then you can get better. You learn. I had to learn what I wasn't good at. I won't say how long ago this was, but I used to send out an audio, and my mentor had me send it to him first. And after him critiquing it 14 times, he said, okay, you can send that, Royal. I had to get better. And that's what huddle, play, huddle does.
Hey, Lowell,
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
I want to say about, and I know Andy Argyris is watching, and he's stuck in Canada, or we'd love to have him here, but he said in our planning meeting, sometimes people use the word mentor, and it's a big word. And he said sometimes it comes across like space alien, and you got to be careful. And you talk to people, most people, if you say, do you have a mentor, they think of their boss. And I usually say that their boss is usually their tormentor, not their mentor. But be careful that you aren't weird in talking to people, because how did you earn a mentor? And, that's sometimes that can come across where you've got to let them go into it. And I wanted to add on when you said if somebody isn't getting in meet and greet one, we've been taught since the very start you have to have 8 to 10 people going through the process to get one or two. And what is on our team, what I've seen happen is they know that. They know they got to have 8 to 10 going through the process to get one or two, but they have 1 or 2 or 3 going through the process, so they're counting on all them instead of getting to 8 to 10, and then the ones that fall out don't bother them. And the process helps clarify whether they really are going to be a partner and they're going to be serious about partnership.
If you only
when we were talking about with Andy, one of the things that I thought about is that's the importance of getting with your mentor and helping them write your MTA, to write it in a way that actually fits you and helps you with that. And so that's a big thing. And then also when they're huddling, is to not do it after they've sent like 15 conversations back and forth. Like maybe getting with your upline mentor and saying, hey, I'm going to be making some connections at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. Are you available to help me with them? And then when you're sending the information, to get feedback with every reply rather than waiting until you've got a whole string of conversation and realizing, man, you blew it back at text two.
Hey, Lowell, would you also explain how many MTA stories you help a new person on your team develop?
Yeah, I think that's different with each person, but we work a lot with you're talking about different MTAs. I have one for people that are their A and B list that's much more casual in their language, and then I help one that's more formal, and we write a short version of each one, and then a way to continue if the person asks more questions. And so it gives them a way to be able to reply back real quick. If somebody says, what do you do? They can throw it out there real quick, like Dan Rain talked about, having it right the first part of the conversation. And they can do that whether it's a close relationship so that it doesn't sound strange because they're using words that don't fit them, or they can do it with a complete stranger, maybe a little more formal in the way that it sounds. So, yeah, we write basically 4 versions.
And how long are they?
The short version's usually like a sentence and a half or 2. The other one can be maybe 5 sentences. And then the difference between the two is just we're not going to use the word mentor as much with their close friends. We're going to talk about I'm being taught how to, and it's really helping me because I'm learning. So just a little different kind of maybe informal language.
One thing that Johan said on CD 1399 and in his training is if you send a long text, that's weird.
Yeah.
There's a reason Twitter is 15 words.
Yeah.
If you send a long text, he says, people go, who took all the time to write this text? That's weird.
Yeah. So if somebody's not necessarily biting on the mentor, building assets, the conversations may be leading to fear of COVID and how it's going to affect their health. Is there a time that you maybe would want to lead with product out of this conversation with a stranger?
Yes, I would say about 50% of the people that we have launched have come from product first, leading with product. It used to be like 0, but now it's about 50-50. And you may change the conversation to like what we were talking about this afternoon in the product session, to leading with a product. And we always say that product, whatever that product is, and most of the time it's Neutralite, but whatever that product is, that's one of our assets. And a lot of times somebody will turn back around and will say, well, what do you mean one of your assets? And then we say, we're part of a private mentorship team that's teaching us how to create assets. And that's one of ours. So it kind of goes in an MTA.
Excellent. Yeah. So when is it appropriate then to drop the message? Maybe you can give a couple examples from a recent conversation that you had that you gave your MTA, you deepened it, and it got to the point where it made sense to drop the message. How do you know this?
Well, of course, if they if they respond to the MTA and say anything positive about it, or recognize that you've said it, how does that work, or that sounds interesting, or sometimes they'll go right into. I was talking to a gentleman who is doing some work on a project for me, and just asking a question. He asked me, "Hey, do you do this? Do you do this for a living?" I said, "No, I just play around with this real estate stuff here, and but I'm part of a team, and we teach people how to build assets, and in the business world." And he said, and right away he just said, "I've been wanting to get in my own business. I just don't know how." So obviously, there's a guy. It just led into it. Okay, so if they respond, the first way is if they respond to your MTA, then you can go right into a DTM and set up a meet and greet.
And like Barbara was saying, we a lot of times today we lead with product, and it's not that we go out to lead with product. It's we're listening to people, and it's natural. We're listening to people on what they're saying, and I had a challenge, and this is the product I use for that, and it's one of our assets. And we'll talk, and then we'll go back to the product, and a lot of times they'll come back. What do you mean asset? What do you mean? How does that work? Well, we're part of a private mentorship group, and it's a qualifying process. Maybe we can talk later, and I take it away from them because I don't want to really talk to them about how it all works. I just want to find out if they want to know more information, and then I can lead back in with it later with a deeper conversation when I have all my wits about me about what I'm going to talk about with that. Because sometimes you're in the middle of something and somebody will say something and it's not the right time for you, and it's okay to say, "Can I get back with you on that? Let me get your name and number. I really enjoyed your conversation. Can I get back with you?"
Bob, do you want to add anything?
Well, I think the most important thing is to always be ready, but don't be out there.
Yes.
Don't leave the house saying, "I'm going to go find somebody." That's weird.
Yes.
But every time you're out or everywhere you go, if you're ready, that means you know your story. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people is their 30-second story is 4.5 minutes.
Yes.
And literally you ought to practice it. And if it's longer than 30 seconds, you need to keep cutting it, and then cut it, and then cut it, and get it down to where everything you can say enough to make it happen in 30 seconds, and to meet people where they're at. Norman likes to say, meet people where they're at and take them to where they want to go. And everybody is looking for something in their life. Everybody is looking to better their life. This may not be the way they believe that can happen, but I have not met anybody that doesn't want to improve their life. And, so when you're out there, if you're just you and you're relaxed and you build a conversation with someone and you don't think, you don't want to, like Johan says, "What does this guy want, money from me or what?" You want to be careful. And I love what on Dirk's audios where he says, sometimes you just got to know where you're at. In Texas, we can't use the direct approach that Joe Mancuso can use in New Jersey because it's different. People are different. They would think that's weird. And I think where you live, you need to know that, and you just need to be open. Norman and I sat down for dinner when we got here Thursday night, and we were at a table the guy sitting next to me is close as Tom, and he was here for a convention, and he said, "What are you all here for?" And I wasn't trying to MPA. The reason I wasn't trying to MPA him, he looked older than I was. And I said, "We're here for an Amway convention." Because I didn't want to have, I'm fine. He said, "Amway, that's a great," we talked, and then Rick shows up, and then Doyle and Holly show up, and we had a nice conversation with Jerry, but it was just a conversation. It was not intentional trying to find a new business partner. And I'll say the last thing, if people will think when they're looking at somebody, "Do I want to be in business with this person? Would this be a partner?" And a long time ago, the qualifying process, a long, long time ago, was, would I trust this person with my wife at home picking up products? I mean, I know that's, some of you guys don't even know what that means, but the old folks in here know what that means. Would I trust this person with my family? Well, now, make sure you're just not looking for people, but that you're building partners. And if you go out with that attitude, everybody you talk to will lead you. And I encourage people, if they're talking to somebody that happens to be 55, they usually have kids. And the approach may be, hey, what's your son doing? Could I help your son? Instead of trying to convince somebody that's trying to figure out how to end the cycle and find somebody who's excited about the future.
Yeah, I think the really summary here is determining whether somebody's in the looking zone. I had an individual that I met pretty recently who was ex-military. He's got his 20 years in. He's a Marine. His wife's a doctor, and he's working in a retail gun store. And, we get to talking, and he mentions that he doesn't want to stay there, that he's just doing this temporarily, but he really wants to start his own business. And gave me a perfect opportunity to give him my MTA, that I had a retail store and learned how to build assets. Now we have freedom. And so then he's been on to share with me that his goal is to start a coffee shop. So he wasn't asking me for more information on how to build assets. So it wasn't really opportune to DTM. But we found out we had a lot of common interests. We ended up going hunting together a couple times, going to the shooting range, doing some fun things. And through that, I brought up my MTA again. And I talked to him about the fact that, when I had the retail store, I didn't really have any freedom. I couldn't go and do things that I wanted to do. And he said, yeah, that is one of the drawbacks with the coffee thing, And I said, well, do you have anybody can guide you or teach you in that way, Well, no, I really, in fact, I could use some guidance from you. Well, then it made perfect sense to drop the message. And so I said, well, I'd be willing to connect you to the people that I've learned from. I'd have to get back to you. I texted Steve Yeager and I said, hey, I'm going to tell this guy I mentioned your name to him and wanted you to know that I did this, and so it's going to be authentic. And he said, okay, cool, and so I said to him, hey, I reached out to my mentor, and he'd be cool with me offering to make the connection for you if it made sense. But, let's sit down with you and your wife, because I already found out now that his wife kind of wears the pants in all this, because he kept saying, my wife this, and she decides that. And so I already knew it's going to take getting that connection made with both of them. So we're in the process of making that happen. But it wasn't until he said, hey, yeah, I could use some help from you, that I made that connection. So this is when it would make sense to set up a meet and greet 0 or a meet and greet 0.5. And maybe you can share a little bit more about when you would use that as opposed to going right into a DTM from a regular conversation that you had.
Well, an MG 0.5, I guess we're going to call it, right? Is that what we call it? MG 0.5.
Sure.
So a meeting before the MG1 is really just a time where you're getting to know them and deciding whether you're going to make them aware. It's a great way to reconnect with somebody. If you had some kind of professional interaction with somebody, today, all kinds of people will just want to meet and get a cup of coffee, because they've been taught they want to network. They need to build a big network. That's why you get requests on LinkedIn for all kinds of people want to be your. It's not a friend there on LinkedIn, but whatever it is, because they're trying to build their network. So meeting someone for a cup of coffee just to get to know them is what everybody wants to do. So just do that. That'd be an MG 0.5, And then if in the conversation there you make them aware, and then they respond, you could go right make it into an MG1. You could go right to it, but most likely it's going to be a discussion, and then you can say, let's stay connected, and then you could connect with to set up an MG1 later.
And an MG, we call it MG0 or MG 0.5, and in your TL14 on page 14, it talks about connecting and pre-qualifying, and that's all we're doing. Is you already have your story down, so you're not trying to, do the one story. Now you just want to connect with them.
Well, and on an MG 0.5, you're building a relationship with someone you don't know, and that's what the goal of an MG1 is. But it's hard in 30 or 40 minutes to build relationships with someone. You may think you're, so I teach our people on an MG.5. Your job is to ask questions and just listen. Get to know them, and if they do all the talking, that's a really good, successful. And I know I've had people that the MG.5 goes so well, they move it into an MG1. And I teach checkup line, if this isn't how you guys do it, but I teach if you've gone through an MG5 and you've reconnected with somebody you've known 2 years ago and you're going through that and it goes really good and you go, here's how I transitioned to an MG1. Well, Joe, boy, this conversation's been great. Here's what's happened in my life, and I wanted to, I don't know if, and I dropped my MTA right there. After MG.5 is not a meet and greet 1. It's not a meet and greet 2. It's to see if we get to meet and greet 1. But if everything goes good, I have been able to transition personally an MG.5 into an MG1. And it all depends if they get the book and if they earn the book. And that's, you got to remember that going in. They have to earn your time. They have to earn your upline mentor's time, and they got to earn the book.
Yep. So a meet and greet 0.5 is maybe when you've had a very short interaction with somebody, like Royal and Barb was talking about, and they just got the number, and you sit down with them then and give a full MTA, maybe ask some deeper questions, get to a DTM, and then from there you may set up a separate time for meet and greet 1, or it may roll right into it. Another time that it might be is a B-list person where you haven't talked to this person since high school, and you plan a time to visit, and maybe you've mentioned your MTA, particularly a short version on a text or a communication initially, but you didn't give the full information. And then in a meet and greet 0.5, you just go into the whole thing and ask some deeper questions and see whether it makes sense to DTM them and move it forward. And all of these steps, all of the things that we've broken a contact down to, from a conversation, MTA, a DTM, a meet and greet 1, they're all in place as a discipline mentally to do what you said, Bob, and that's make sure the person qualifies to go to that next step. But blurring that lines can become very comfortable as you get better and better at this process, because you can see the progression of knowing how this is going and know that it's working. Like it's ready to move to the next step, but you're still disciplining your mind as, does this person deserve to get a DTM? Does this person deserve to get a meet and greet 1? Do they deserve to get a book? And just knowing these things can really be a great discipline to do that. Yep.
Yeah, Lowell, also, one of the things in a conversation, MG5 or to an MG1, is sometimes we'll ask them, it's Alan P's book, Questions Are the Answers, and we ask them, this may be strange, but has anybody ever asked you what your motivating factor is? Barbara has asked people that, and by the time she gets through, they're crying because nobody has ever cared enough to ask them. And that's really sad.
I love the question on the meet and greet 1 of tell me a time that you've overcome a lot of obstacles and met your objective. You usually get a very heartfelt response. Yeah. So coming into this, what is the purpose of a meet and greet 1? What's the main thing you're trying to do? We got this list of questions to answer or to ask. Do you have them answer all of them?
No. And in the MG1 on page, y'all getting this? We're not the answer up here. The system is the answer. Okay. On the TL14 on page 22, it says meet and greet 1 with your candidate. The purpose of an MG1 is to, and you can read the rest of the book and find out. Okay, Tom said read you a couple. It's check the mindset to see whether that they're a candidate or not, or to connect with them, see if there's any rapport. It's to build a little bit of trust. To see if they know how to talk.
And this goes back to, we had a book in the system. Do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? You're kind of finding that out in that process.
When as we're talking here, I'm just thinking, what makes these effective, and everyone in here, I hope this comes out right. These people are going to benefit. Their life is going to be better.
Amen.
If you decide to partner with them.
Yes.
Look, they're going to be exposed to what we're exposed to this weekend. They're going to be exposed to incredible people like the Jaegers and your sponsors and your upline. And if we go into the discussions thinking about that, do I want to commit my time to them? And because you only have a limited amount of time, how many people could you possibly mentor at any one time? Not that many, right? And you're giving your life to them. They're going to benefit for being associated with you and this team. And when we're doing these meetings, if you're thinking about that, it will make the process go right. You'll be in the driver's seat rather than letting them ask the questions and take control of it. So they're going to benefit way more than you will. And so just think about the changes in your life that have occurred because you're associated with this team. They're going to get that, but they're only going to get it if they're the right people. So
we've had people go through the process, and I'm sure none of y'all have ever had this happen. They didn't make it to step 7, but we've kept contact with them, and they've said what we've done, because we started them reading, we started them listening. What they've learned has helped them in their life, and they can be somebody to come back to again later. Maybe right now is not the right time, but maybe a year from now is.
Steve told us in the planning meeting yesterday that by probably the end of the first quarter, we will be able to gift all audios, not just the prospect audios. Give a round of applause for that, because that is going to be where you can build relationships with somebody that may be a long-term relationship that may come in the future, because timing has to be right. And if timing is not right, it's okay. You gotta realize that it as Tom, that was a great posture of why we do this. That was great.
Yep. It's excellent. So when somebody's doing a meet and greet in the beginning, obviously they're going to take their mentor with them. But how quickly should somebody get out on their own and start doing their own meet and greet 1 or 2?
Okay, somebody go first.
I'll go first.
And that depends on each different person. We're all different people, and we all have our own posture, our own belief. And as we grow, it changes for all of us.
Yeah, that's right. It has to be individual, because people are coming to you. You're going to meet somebody that's already been very successful in another career, has great confidence, is good at talking to people. They were going to be doing their meet and greets sooner than a person who is at the lowest rung of the ladder, like someone has to make eye contact with people, and that's hard. So this is why just getting in contact with your coach on a regular basis is so important, because it's so individual.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I thought what Dimitri said earlier today, I'm not the magic. I'm not the person. I'm going to be the guy to introduce you to the person. And I think on a meet and greet too, Andy Argyris said, unless that person is experienced, they need to have their coach with them to give credibility to that person and to give edification to the mentor, so that they realize this is important. I want to ask you a question. If you were introducing them to Steve Jaeger or Rick Setzer or Danny Snipes, and that was the next step, would you say, hey, can you put this on your calendar? And if anything, or how important would you make it?
Yep.
And that's the mistake I see people that they don't have that posture yet, because it's belief. They don't understand, and they don't have the belief. Once they have that belief, you can't stop them.
Excellent. So we got about 3 minutes left, so this is going to have to go really quickly. But we all want results. What are some common roadblocks you have seen with people that keep them from getting the results, even though they're doing the activity.
They do all the talking and not the listening.
Yeah. Any others?
Don't do enough conversations.
Yeah. Barb, you were talking about how many people what Chick-fil-A go through?
Yes, at one of the core runs, Doyle did a video on Chick-fil-A, and they interview 8,000 people to vet 130 owners. 8,000 people to vet 130 owners, get 130 owners. And we're just talking about having 5 conversations that you were having before you ever got in the business anyway. And
Any others?
Yeah, one thing is be careful as you're going through this that you're looking at the right thing. You know, we don't want to measure our progress based on the standard necessarily. I mean, you want to look at the standard and head towards it, but you measure progress, not the end result. You know, in other words, so I know if a person is not doing conversations and is today and next month after a function like this decides and they're consistently now doing 5 or 6, that's progress, and that should be celebrated, right? And then you go from there to increasing your progress. But what happens is if you look on the sheet and say, "Oh, I'm supposed to be doing 5 meetings this week," and you're not doing it, and you feel like you're a failure, that's measuring the wrong thing. You got to measure the progress along the way, because there's nobody up here that started off being at the standard, right? So measuring the right thing, and that's why talking to your upline regularly is so important. Because
and that's the importance of tracking all of this and turning it into your mentor so that they can help you know your numbers and see the progress that's happening. And I know that's one of the things that Steve's been very good with us with, is helping us see that we've made progress, even though we're down on ourselves or not feeling like we're getting what we want.
it goes back to what Tom was talking about, atomic habits. He talked about getting 1% better. And everybody's starting at a different point. But realize that we're becoming everything we're reading, everything we're listening to, and everything we're attending. You are not the same person that started in this process. You're a much better. You're further than what you think you are. You do want to get into the activity and doing enough activity. But then again, it doesn't help to beat up on yourself and feel guilty.
I think people need to have more people going through the process.
Yes.
And if you don't have that, you need to go out and just be around people.
Yes.
Don't go out intentionally looking for people. Just go out. You know, join the gym or go to the Y or go where people are and just do your daily life and be around people. And God will put the people, if you pray about it, ask God to bless you, He's going to put people in front of you that you need to say hi to.
Yeah, I tell my team, just MTA more. Yeah. And Tom, you had mentioned about looking the part. You want to mention something about that?
Oh, okay. The question was looking the part. You want to, if you're out meeting where people are, you want to look like you're successful. You don't wear a 3-piece suit or anything, but you want to be clean. You want to be wearing, don't look like you've just come out of a nuclear reactor when you're out there attempting to have a conversation and then say, "Yeah, I'm being mentored by a multimillionaire," and they're not going to believe it. Okay, so you want to dress, but it even goes beyond that. Is your car, the things that you have, is your car clean? Are you making a good presentation? I think Milo talks about that on one of the early audios. Is you got to be, when you walk into a room, they're going to say somebody's here. Okay, that you're not looking like somebody that shouldn't be there. Right? You want to say something about that?
Yes. It's like one of the audios. He said that's why they walked in the room like that. They walked in. Their posture, but their posture was there because their shoes were shined, their clothes weren't wrinkled, they were clean, their hair was combed. their face is shaved. I'm sorry that a lot of people look at different things. Give you a good example. I was in a Publix, and I do a lot of PR in Publix, public relations, getting to know people, and that's all our business is PR, by the way. And a lady came up to me and she said, "Excuse me, can you tell me where such and such is?" And I said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I am new at this store. Hang on, let me grab an associate that's been here a while." And I went and got somebody and brought him back. And after the person took care of him, the manager came from the other aisle and he goes, "I was on the other aisle and I heard you. Are you looking for a job?"
Hey, one thing that I think goes with this is not only how do you look, is be prepared. If you go, boy, the next book I want to loan you, oh, I've got to get that. You're not prepared. If you don't have the books, enough of those to build a big team, and if you don't have that, you're not prepared.
Excellent. And, one of the things that I see with people is they allow their belief to get tainted. When somebody or several people are disqualified from the process, they start to assume that this isn't going to work for them or that everybody's going to respond the same way instead of viewing this as a qualification process. If Chick-fil-A would look at the first 7,000 people and go, well, this isn't working, they may not find the 130 they need. So just realizing that this doesn't necessarily mean that the next person that you're taking through this process is going to be that way. And just keeping our belief and what we have to offer other people, high. So in wrapping up, as I listened to everything that you guys are saying, 3 things stood out. And that's more activity, the value of tracking what we're doing and being accountable with our mentor, would solve pretty much all the results that people are looking to create and put them in a position where they can start getting more growth. If you're saying you're part of a mentorship program, to be authentic, then you must be engaging with your mentor. And so we want to create multiplication. We're looking to create duplication. And so upping the numbers, bringing the number of people that you're putting into this qualification process and letting it do the work is paramount to getting the results we're all looking for. And that comes with moving from just doing a 30-day core run and having a few conversations to saying, I'm going to get to that ramp up core run promotion level. And then, you know what? I'm going to go full on and I'm going to get to that 90-day core run standard. And for years of being associated with this business team, we've always known it takes between 8 to 15, preferably 15 people started through the qualification process a month in order to get results. And so it's been great working with everybody. Thank you for this opportunity, Steve, Joel, and Jeff. And we're excited to see everyone be able to take this information and go and grow coming into 2022.
So baby, dry your eyes, save all the tears you've cried. Oh, that's what dreams are made of. Oh, baby, we belong in a world that must be strong. Oh, that's what dreams are made of.
Please help me welcome back to the stage Emeralds, Bob, and Norma Duane.
Okay, get ready. You remember the promise you made me earlier? Okay, I'm going to count on that. We got the honor to pick up the Snipes last night, and I'll tell you what, we had a function just from the airport to the hotel, and talking in the hotel, I said to Norma, we got our money's worth, and
I hope they want to eat so we could eat dinner with them, and we did, and we learned a lot. So
you are going to be so blessed. I mean, this is why we build the business. These are the kind of people that we wanted to be like, that we wanted our family to be like. And I hope they are able to tell the stories they told us last night, because they touched our heart. I couldn't sleep last night. Executive Diamonds, with an incredible history from Raleigh, North Carolina. Would you please give it up for Executive Diamonds, Danny and Renata Snipes!